What do you remember most from our hunts in Alaska?
I mean, I remember a lot of things, but honestly, probably the thing that is most striking to me was how uncomfortable you were to take your first animal,
Mm-hmm.
which meant the world to me because it's really uncomfortable for me to take an animal. And rarely do I see that in another. And I'm not saying that other guys don't feel that. I think they do. I think a lot of us bury it, hide it, whether it be on camera to our buddies or whatever. But you didn't have the position or the wherewithal to bury it or hide it. You just freaking, it was out. And I appreciated it very much. The uncomfortability that you went through and also the uncertainty. I remember the tarmac with the airplanes. I remember you realizing that I wasn't joking. We are flying out in little tiny airplanes with pilots that are very skilled, but hold no control over the weather or what is going to happen. And so those are very defining moments for me. It's when you took your animal and then the flight out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I remember so much of that trip and think about it all the time. But to your point about taking an animal, let me just say, if you're listening and you have any qualms with hunting, we're going to get into Donnie's worldview about hunting, which I think is really nuanced and important. But I'll say this. After I took that animal, I definitely went through, I was totally sad. I was angry at you guys for a minute. It was just all these emotional swings. But eventually, after going through that, I think I started to understand, oh, this is why Donnie does what he does. And had you not, because I remember your position on that was, you don't have to hunt. I'm not going to make you hunt. At the same time, I think you would understand this greater topic that you're writing about if you were to hunt. And so for me, I trusted you on that. And immediately after, I go, why did I trust this son of a bitch? This is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. I'm never coming back from this. But then afterwards, I got it. And that just totally changed me in a lot of ways.
Yeah. You could have come just like you did in Nevada. You could have come and written the story and written the book about the things that we were doing from the outside of the fire, if you will. But if you wanted to truly dive into an experience and have those emotions well up, you were going to have to take an animal's life. And I specifically remember your sadness. I specifically remembered your anger. I also remember when we were caribou, their faces, even when they're alive, when they're close to you, when you see their eyes and their big, huge, bulbous nostrils, they're a very sweet-looking animal. They're people always like to use this word. It has no position in wilderness and wildlife, but people like to say they have an innocence about them. They look like a creature that could do no harm. They look like a curious animal. They almost have eyes. They have looks like your dog might look at you. But I remember when you took that animal's life, and you took a fine bull, an old bull. That's what we do. That's how we try and do it. We try to remove animals from the herd that are going to have very little impact on the herd. And I remember when you took that bull, the quietness that the Arctic brings, other than a little bit of wind, is very, very haunting. There's nothing as far as you can see other than pure wilderness, some mountains, some trees, rivers, but there's nothing as far as you can see. There's a true aloneness that you feel there other than the people that you share that time with. And then your bull was laying there. There's a melancholy piece to this. And then I remember when we started skinning your bull and you started to see, dare I say, meat products that you also have seen in the grocery store. I remember you were like, oh, now that the skin's off, now that we're breaking the animal down, it's starting to look like steaks. And then I saw you kind of go, oh. And I still, to this day, if I kill a moose or a black bear and you walk up on it, there's a sadness to it. And you start breaking the animal down, you start doing the work, you start earning these calories that you're going to have this winter or over the summer, or whatever it is. You start getting the blood on your hands and feeling the weight in your backpack. And it starts to transition into a workload that is, quite an investment and a respect that you have for wild places.
Yeah. I think that's a good segue into to talk about kind of your overall worldview on hunting, because hunting is obviously controversial among a lot of people.
Yeah.
So how do you think about that? And how do you have conversations with people who may be anti-hunting, maybe vegetarian or vegan? What do those look like? And how do you sort of shape that?
It's in a manner of which you carry yourself, and it isn't smoke and mirrors. There isn't this position of you have to dance around the subject matter or come up with clever sentences or clever statements and to sell what you're doing. It is who we were as a people, and ecosystems do very, very well to be hunted. Most do anyway. And obviously, human beings have encroached into a lot of wild areas, and we've pressured a lot of game in different areas where some animals are going extinct. And then some other animals that do very well near human beings, like the white-tailed deer, are exploding and need their numbers taken down by hunters, or else there's just an immense amount of car collisions and things like that. If you want to carry yourself in a manner that is going to engage good conversation with non-hunters or anti-hunters or vegetarians, vegans, whatever it is, people love when things are black and white, but nothing actually is black and white. We live in the gray position. And so we better carry ourselves and be open for thoughtful questions around this thing, because you might get asked a question, Michael, that actually changes your thought process and might actually make you think about a process that you're doing that you maybe shouldn't be. When I think hunting right now, particularly everything on social media is grandiose. People that call themselves hunters right now, and some of the things that they do are very difficult to justify and very difficult to kind of contemplate, because it isn't man versus beast. It isn't man versus wild. This is an immersion of who we are. And there's a big difference between conquering a land and shooting a limit than there is kind of becoming one with predator and prey and really enveloping yourself in the natural world.
Yeah. And you've made the point, if a person eats meat, typically the buy-in is to go to the grocery store and buy meat that's, prepackaged, looks all nice. But they don't really know where it came from, what the animal lived like, all these other important things. They don't really have a selection over that. And you've pointed out, well, I actually know those things. I know how old this animal was. I know, was it close to the end of its life? Where did it come from? How did it live? And so you said that word, kind of inserting yourself, and you're able to insert yourself and kind of, I think, make decisions that fundamentally change how you think about where your food comes from in a world where most people, including myself, most things I eat, have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we as a people, and I mean, myself is included, like if I need something today, if I'm going to have broccoli for dinner and, I don't have a garden going right now. If I need broccoli for dinner, I'm going to go buy that broccoli, and I'm going to go to the grocery store, and I'm going to try to get the best quality items that I can. But the reality is, we don't live a lifestyle. Some people do that are truly off grid, but we don't live a lifestyle that lends itself to getting everything in this manner. But I think it's much more who you are as a person, how you live your life. And I think the more we hunt, the more we gather, the more we grow, the more we envelope ourselves in wild places and are getting outside and experiencing the wild world. And some of the things that you discovered in the comfort crisis, when you went back, when you took some of our experiences to different researchers, and they backed up the things that I guess I was talking about and that you were experiencing as well, with how that affects our psyche and our happiness and our feeling fulfilled. I just think it's where we live best. But man, the infrastructure right now, like you go to New York City, right? You live in downtown New York City. To me, that seems like a hellhole. For me to live in Manhattan would be a prison.
I don't think you would do well there. I really don't think you would do well there.